Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something that really challenges a common belief.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
This idea that becoming a millionaire is, well, impossible, especially if you're starting with a low salary. It's something you hear all the time, right?
Absolutely. It feels like a mountain too high to climb for many people.
Exactly. But the source material we're looking at today, it tackles that head on. It actually lays out a step-by-step guide. It says it's not just a dream, it's, doable.
Okay, interesting.
So our mission today is basically to cut through the usual noise, give you, our listeners, a clear look at the proven financial principles and habits you need, a shortcut to understanding the journey.
And that's a really important point because the guide's core idea is pretty powerful. It's saying, look, wealth isn't just about how much you earn.
Right, not just the paycheck.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally about how you manage your money, how you save it, and crucially, how you invest it.
Manage, save, invest. Got it.
Yeah. And this source, it gives a realistic plan. How to build wealth, basically, from scratch. It really hammers home discipline, strategy, and maybe the biggest one, time. Using time strategically.
So it makes it feel more accessible even if you're not earning six figures right now.
Exactly. It shows it's possible, whatever your starting point is. It's about the plan, not just the initial income.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So the guide lays out, four key pillars for this journey, kind of a roadmap to wealth.
That's right. 4 main areas.
First, it's about really mastering your budget, especially if it's tight. Squeezing value out of every dollar saved.
Makes sense. Step 1.
Second, actively boosting your income. Not just relying on the main job, finding other sources.
Okay, bringing more in.
Third, smart investing. Making sure your money isn't just sitting there, but actually working for you, growing.
Putting the money to work.
And finally, something they call a millionaire mindset, which interestingly isn't about being rich now, but more about patience and sticking with it, a growth focus.
Right, the psychology behind it. And the guide makes these objectives really concrete. It's not just vague ideas. It stresses setting clear, measurable goals across different time frames, too.
Okay, like short-term, long-term.
Exactly. So short-term, think 1 to 3 years, the big focus there. Save 10 to 20% of your income, minimum.
10 to 20%.
And this is critical, knock out high-interest debt. Credit cards, those loans for, fancy stuff you don't really need.
Get rid of the bad debt.
Absolutely. And build up that emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. These aren't just nice to haves, they're the foundation. They stop you from getting knocked off track later.
Right, the safety net.
Then medium term, say 5 to 10 years out, the goal kind of shifts. You're aiming to maybe double your income.
Double it. Wow. How?
By learning new valuable skills maybe, or starting a side business. And you really start ramping up investing in things that generate passive income. Stocks, maybe real estate.
Okay, so building assets.
Precisely. And then the long-term view, 20 to 30 years, that's when you're aiming for the $1 million mark. Mostly through compound interest doing its magic. The eventual goal is living off those investments, rents, dividends, whatever.
Sounds like a long game.
It is. But what's really insightful is how the guide breaks it down. It takes this huge, kind of scary goal, $1 million, and chops it into these manageable phases, step by step.
Makes it feel less overwhelming, more like a series of achievable steps.
Exactly. Psychological wins building up to the big financial win.
Okay, so that leads us right into the first practical strategy the guide really pushes. Strict financial control. Budgeting.
Yep. Bedrock.
They talk about the 50-30-20 rule, which lots of people have heard of. But they also offer an alternative, the 70-20-10 rule, especially for lower incomes. How does that work? Why the adjustment?
Yeah, that's a great point because it hits a common sticking point. The standard 50-30-20 rule says 50% of your take-home pay goes to needs, rent, food, transport, the absolute essentials.
60% for needs. Okay.
Then 30% for wants, entertainment, hobbies, eating out, the fun stuff, and the crucial part, 20% goes straight to savings and investment. That's non-negotiable.
20% saved or invested, always.
Always. But for someone on a lower income, that 50% for needs might already be really tight, or even more than 50%, leaving almost nothing for savings after you factor in wants.
Yeah, I could see that.
So the 70-20-10 rule adjusts. It allocates 70% to needs, acknowledging that reality. But here's the key. It still protects that vital 20% for savings and investment.
Ah, so the wants category shrinks.
Exactly. Wants get squeezed down to just 10%. It accepts that necessities cost more proportionally, but it absolutely insists on building that saving and investing habit from day one.
So no excuses not to save that 20%.
None. And the guide is really strict on this. You have got to avoid unnecessary debt like the plague, especially credit cards used badly or loans for, I don't know, luxury items.
Why so strict on that?
Because that kind of debt is like trying to fill a leaky bucket. It just completely undermines any effort you're making to save and build wealth. It cancels it out.
Okay, that makes sense. Control spending, prioritize saving, avoid bad debt. Got it. But then, here's where it gets really interesting, right?
Uh-huh.
The guide says managing money is crucial. But to really speed things up, you need to expand your capacity, grow your income. It's not just about cutting back.
Absolutely. Defense and offense.
Right. And the guide really pushes developing profitable skills. So for someone listening thinking, I'm already working full-time, how do I do that? What skills are we talking about? Where do you even start?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, almost literally. The guide points toward skills that are really in demand, skills that can seriously boost what you earn, often outside the typical 9-to-5 grind.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Okay. Things like programming, digital marketing, graphic design, maybe even certain types of trading if you learn properly.
Stuff you can learn online.
Exactly. The guide highlights how accessible this is now. You don't need a 4-year degree necessarily. Think online courses, platforms like Coursera, Udemy, Google certifications, they offer pathways.
So these aren't just skills, they're like leverage.
That's a perfect word for it, leverage. They let you charge more for your time or open up completely new ways to make money. That's absolutely vital if your main salary is, well, modest.
Okay, develop profitable skills.
Yeah.
And building on that, the guide talks about side hustles, these flexible, maybe part-time things you do on top of the main job.
Precisely. Adding extra income streams.
What are some practical examples the source gives? Things people could potentially start, like now.
It gives a good range. For skills-based stuff, freelancing is big. Using platforms like Fiverr or Upwork if you can write, design, do admin tasks, that sort of thing.
Using skills you might already have.
Right. Or for more immediate cash, maybe selling stuff you don't need anymore online. Sites like eBay or local ones like Mercado Libre, depending on where you are, turn clutter into cash.
Declutter and earn. I like it.
And then there are things like driving for Uber or Lyft, delivering food, doing virtual assistant tasks online. Lots of options, often with flexible hours.
The key is just finding something extra.
Yeah, the guide's point is there are tons of ways to boost your income. Find one that fits and use that extra cash to fuel that 20% savings goal or even push it higher.
Okay, so control finances, check. Increase income, check. What's next? Making the money you do have work for you.
Exactly. That's the magic step, really. Making your money work harder than you do. And the guide introduces compound interest as like your superpower here.
Compound interest. We hear about it, but what does it really mean for someone starting small?
Well, Einstein supposedly called it the 8th wonder of the world, right? And the guide shows why. It's basically earning returns on your returns.
Earnings on earnings.
Yeah. Your money starts generating its own money. And the source gets specific about how to do this, even if you're not rich, accessible ways. They really highlight ETFs and index funds.
Wait, tracking the S&P 500.
Exactly like that. Broad market funds. They mention the historical average return is around 8 to 10% per year, which sounds okay, but the guide gives this powerful example. Saving just $200 a month seems small, right? But if you consistently get a 10% annual return, that can grow to $1 million in about 35 years.
Wow, $200 a month to $1 million just from compounding.
Just from consistent saving and the power of compounding over time, it really shows that patient investing, even with small sums, leads to incredible growth. It doesn't care how much you started with.
That's actually mind-blowing when you put it like that.
Yeah.
What about real estate? Do you need to buy a house?
Not necessarily. The guide clarifies that. You can invest in real estate through things like REITs, real estate investment trusts.
The REITs, right, like stocks for property.
Sort of, yeah. Or even through crowdfunding platforms. These dramatically lower the barrier. You don't need a huge down payment.
Makes it way more accessible.
Definitely. And finally, it does mention starting a business or entrepreneurship as an option for those with a good, scalable idea. But it stresses you can often start small with little capital.
So lots of investment options beyond just saving cash.
Absolutely. And connecting it all, the big picture here is how much easier investing has become. It's not just for the wealthy anymore. These tools, these strategies, they really level the playing field if you're willing to learn and commit.
Okay, so we've covered the practical stuff. Budgeting, earning more, investing smart. But you mentioned mindset earlier. The guide seems to think the psychology is just as important, maybe more.
Oh, hugely important. The guide is really clear. The financial mechanics are one thing, but sticking to the plan, that's largely psychological.
Right. Knowing what to do is different from actually doing it for decades.
Exactly. They stress cultivating this millionaire mindset and specific daily habits.
Huh.
You asked earlier how much is psychology. The guide implies maybe like 80% of success is the mental game, the grit to stay the course.
80%.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are these crucial habits? What's the mindset shift?
Well, a few key things. First, and this is a big one, live like you're middle class, even when your income starts to climb.
Resist lifestyle inflation.
Precisely. Resist the urge to buy fancier cars or bigger houses just because you can. Instead, the guide says, reinvest those gains. Keep pouring fuel on the investment fire.
Delay gratification for a bigger payoff later.
You got it. True freedom is built over time, not bought impulsively. Second, and this is really fascinating, strategically choose who you surround yourself with.
Your social circle matters for finance.
According to the guide, absolutely. Seek out people who talk about finances intelligently, saving, investing, smart growth, and actively avoid people who push you towards excessive spending or that keeping up with the Joneses trap.
Interesting. So your environment shapes your financial habits.
That's the argument. Your social ecosystem can either support your goals or subtly sabotage them. Choose wisely. It's as important as picking the right ETF, maybe more so.
Okay, that's a powerful thought. So wrapping this all up, bringing our deep dive towards a close, the guide's main message seems incredibly hopeful.
Yeah, I think so. Liberating, even.
Becoming a millionaire, even starting small, not impossible. It boils down to, what, a few core things working together.
Pretty much. The essential ingredients, you could say.
Unwavering discipline in saving that percentage. Being proactive, strategic about increasing your income streams.
Yep, multiple sources.
Consistent, patient investing. Letting time and compounding do their work.
Consistency is key.
And crucially, maintaining that frugal or at least sensible lifestyle until you actually reach financial freedom. Not jumping the gun.
Exactly. And that point about time being your best ally, it really hits home. The sooner you start, even small, the faster that compounding engine really revs up. It propels you forward.
So starting early is a huge advantage.
Massive. But starting now is always better than starting tomorrow.
Right. So for listeners wanting to act on this, the Force gives some specific challenges to start today, right? Some concrete first steps.
It does. Very actionable takeaways.
Yeah.
First, right now, today, make a realistic budget. Look hard at where your money is going and cut the unnecessary stuff. Be honest with yourself.
Step 1, know your numbers.
Step 2, open an investment account, even with a tiny amount to start. Just get it open. The guide even suggests looking at simple, broad ETFs like VOO or SPY just to get your feet wet.
Lower the barrier to entry. Just start.
Exactly. Third, commit to learning one extra skill that could potentially generate more income. Start researching, sign up for a course, whatever.
Seed for future income growth.
Right. And finally, automate your savings. This is huge. Set up an automatic transfer, that 20%. Have it move to your savings or investment account the moment you get paid, before you can even think about spending it.
Make it automatic. Pay yourself first.
Make it non-negotiable. It's a payment to your future self. That's how the guide frames it.
So the final thought really comes down to the listener, doesn't it? Are you ready to take that first step?
Yeah.
Because the guide makes it clear. That $1 million goal, it's not some fantasy, it's achievable.
Yeah.
But it all hinges on one decision. When do you decide to actually start? To take these first consistent critical steps, the power isn't in the guide, it's in your hands right now.